Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning to you. Rainy morning here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, January 3, 2023. It's a Tuesday. And Susan should be on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'm very subdued today because of
I
this.
bet. There's been just tons of bad news in your area.
I wasn't watching, and I wish I hadn't seen it. You know, it's what I wouldn't have known it 10 years ago. I would have been able to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about these young people. I want to say this. Can I read something that I think is just one of the better things I've seen so far?
Yeah.
About it. It was written by Jerry Brewer. This is in the Washington Post. Just two things from it. He begins, for once, the NFL stopped. It stopped cold. The relentless sport had to, even if it didn't really want to, because the horror was inescapable. The violence could not be minimized. And then he goes on to say, this could happen in any game at any moment, but it occurred on the grandest of football stages during the only professional football game of the night, in the final Monday night football game of the season. It was a reminder of the sport's unremitting brutality. It forced all to deal with the harsh reality of this beloved game. Now, it is, look, I don't know. I don't know. I have tried so many times to quit watching football. I've done it, and then I've drifted back. And this guy goes on to say, football is not a sport that happens to be violent. It is an intrinsically vicious sport that many spectators deem justifiably brutal. Most don't enjoy it despite the constant collisions. They love it because of them. I don't count myself as one of those, but I remember as a little kid being struck when we would go to a Packer game by the sound of the hits in person. Yes. Yeah.
That there would be a crack and an oof. Mean, it was very personal, and I decided at that time that I wasn't sure I liked this.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't allowed to. I felt like I wasn't even allowed to think it. But
no,
I don't have a hard time not watching. The only reason I know about it is because I turned on the news. And that's all that was on the news. And then you were forced to watch it and watch it and watch it. And as someone that I was listening to said, and as this guy says, this isn't unusual. This is a violent game. And what this other guy was saying is, if something like this is going to happen to you, he's taking the other point of view. It happened to him in the best place possible, because knowing how vicious the game
violent it is. Yeah.
There are doctors of every kind available. On call, the local trauma center is on high alert for every NFL game.
That
says something. That just says something, sure. People.
No, of course. And the reason this is chilling too. This kid, this 24-year-old kid, Damar Hamlin, was not a starter when the season began, but he became a starter because another player on Buffalo's team in the same position, safety, a guy named Micah Hyde, in another Monday night football game in September of this year, suffered a neck injury and was taken away in an ambulance.
Right.
It's almost as if, the next person up as a safety for Buffalo might want to say,
never mind, go to number 4.
Right. And the guy, this first guy that went down says, I understand that this is a violent game. Anything can happen on any given night. And as I was in the ambulance and going to the hospital, I thought, I got a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so my life was put right in front of me, and it scared me a little bit. So these guys go out there. And the thing was, what I found it fascinating that you can imagine the NFL not knowing what the hell to do. It took them, I wasn't one.
Way too long, I think.
A half hour to say, we're not playing.
Well,
there's no way these guys are going to play.
These guys aren't going to play, was more accurate.
I think that's what happened. Yeah. And I think the coaches felt the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, the NFL only went where they were told they were going to be, because we aren't going on. They were lying on the field sobbing. They weren't going to go back and play football.
And it was also the people in the, stuck on the television having to, I guess, talk, realizing eventually that they weren't going to talk their way through this and going to commercial breaks ad nauseum. And then they started to say, hey, this has to
stop.
Apparently, they started to say, this has to stop. So I didn't know.
And then everybody, the way Americans react is within like an hour of this happening. The charity, I guess it was a little Toys for Tots thing in Pittsburgh, went to over $1 million in donations.
Well, and it's just going to keep piling up.
It's just going to keep piling up.
Now, I did not, when I went to bed last night, I did not know, I thought his name sounded familiar. I mean, he played at Pitt, but I didn't know till this morning when I was reading that he was from here, and his parents, because they were playing in Cincinnati, which is so close. His parents were at the game. He was with him right before the game and hugged them on the sideline, somebody said. Can you imagine being his parents?
Well,
they were there.
They were there. At least they were there.
There. Thank God. Whatever.
And they're still with him. Thank God. Yeah. I mean, fingers crossed, I mean, I don't expect he'll play football again, but if they kept oxygen going to his brain and they can get him, his heart to recover, if that is in fact what happened, but it sure seems to make sense. I mean,
well, what people are saying, and I think apologists for, the NFL are immediately saying, well, this is a cardiac, this could have happened to him.
No, it happens from a very specific hit at a terrible moment.
Right.
At the exactly wrong moment, and it sends the heart out of its rhythm, and he has a heart attack.
Right.
Yeah. No, but for the hit, this doesn't happen.
No. And I couldn't, I told myself when I was unable to sleep, stop it, I said to myself. There is nothing you can do for him. This constant thinking about this is not going to help him. And I have no ability to stop myself. And I couldn't sleep. And when I finally went to sleep, I had the one nightmare that is my recurring nightmare. Do you have a recurring nightmare?
I haven't for a long time. I have had It was from my childhood. It was about the slaying of our parents.
Jesus.
Yeah, when I was a child, I was just terrified that someone was going to come and take them out. Well, there was a child in my grade school to whom that had happened.
Oh my God!
She was on this famous story. She was on a chartered luxury boat for a vacation with her family, and the captain murdered everybody, and she escaped by hiding in a lifeboat.
What?
Yeah,
who was that?
And I can't remember her name, but she came back to Green Bay where she had family, and she was in my grade school 3rd grade class, and we all knew the story. And I think we were, cautioned by the teacher to be gentle and loving with her. But yeah, that was my recurring nightmare, and it was, all dressed up in different ways. But the thought of that was put into my head, I'm sure, by the horror of knowing that could happen.
My recurring nightmare, and it takes different forms, but it's always essentially the same thing, and it's classic for obviously for me, who is a performer. I'm being shoved onto a stage.
Right, and you don't know why.
I don't know the line. It just changes. Last night I was in some Shakespeare production. It was a big to-do. It was out in a field or something, and I kept forgetting. I couldn't remember this and that. I was desperately looking. It was just this absolute terror. Sometimes I don't even know what the play is, in it. But the sense of being totally unprepared, but being shoved.
Well, yeah, I do have a rolling form of that dream, which is always centered around a test or a university class or something that I'm totally unprepared for, that I didn't know I was supposed to take, or that I absolutely never showed up for. And oops, what are they going to do now? Am I going to graduate? That, and I will literally wake up laughing and going, Susan, that's 50 years ago. Release the anxiety, whatever this is.
Well,
but I do. Those sorts of things I have, but I think everybody has those.
So, I have not watched television at all. And so I have not. Are they showing him collapsing?
No, they're showing mostly the big huddle of the players praying. They're not showing.
I hope that.
And they did show. I happened to look up and see the ambulance driving away. But I hadn't been.
No, watching. I'm talking about he tackles somebody. I guess.
No, I haven't seen. I have not seen him get out and then heels over
and then just out. I hope to hell they're not showing that.
I have not seen that.
God. He played football at Central Catholic right down the street here. He from McKees Rocks. Very apparently, and again, they do say a very, very nice, good soul. Jesus, it just makes you insane. I can't stop thinking about it.
I know. And then,
making me crazy.
And at the same time, this chief of police of his little 4-member police department and a police officer are shot.
Yeah, that's the front page of Pittsburgh's paper today.
Well, I'm hearing it in Chicago.
Brackenridge Police Department. I can't. And I was hearing lots of sirens because the guy who killed him, who was later killed, was killed in Pittsburgh's East End, which is where I live. So they were ended up ending not too far from me. Why is it when something is physically close to you that it carries more weight,
because the possibilities of your being there and being involved become far more.
But even knowing that this kid, this poor player,
yeah.
I mean, it just makes you, I don't know. Anyway. So yeah, it's just
we all because we're tribal people and we define our tribes and our communities in different ways. Somebody from your community, suffered something terrible, and it affects you in a way in a way that it doesn't when it's not someone of your community. And it's interesting.
I was so affected, though, before I didn't sleep last night, and I didn't know he was from here. But then knowing it was like a double whammy. It did intensify it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But damn. It just breaks my heart. And I'll keep watching. Some woman said on the comments section, what the story about it, she said, hopefully I'll find the courage to stop watching this game I love so much, but I also fear it and hate it, like a bad domestic violence relationship.
Well, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. So after 49 seasons, she says, I've had enough with violence as an entertainment vehicle. I totally understand her. But she doesn't think she's going to stop because she says, hopefully I'll find the courage to stop.
Yeah, you just stop. Watch something else.
No, it's addictive. It's addictive. And this guy who I was... and there's the tribal crap that goes on. So if your team is... I only watch when there's a game that I have some tribal, reason. So Packers, Steelers. I mean, and if it's something... And I don't watch all of them. But the same guy who I was quoting at the beginning talks about the fact that it is addictive. The addiction, he says, is so strong that no single moment, not even one like this, will scare away the crowds. And the conclusion shouldn't be to hate football or feel guilty about loving it. I don't know why he says that. I don't know, because I feel guilty. And I felt guilty for a long time, ever since we realized.
Ever since it became clear that you.
Yeah. I actually thought of calling up Jean Marie Laskus, whose book that was, Concussion, who broke that, to talk today, but I thought I'd leave her alone. I mean, I know she was never a big football fan anyway, so this guy goes on to say it is a warning to balance the obsession with appropriate concern for the human risk that is involved. Well, I'm very aware of the human risk, and it gets to the point where every time now they stop a game, you see players walking off, and now they have to go into a tent to be evaluated, or they're lying there. And you wonder, why am I watching this? Why do I watch a game that puts these beautiful young men in harm's way? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and we bred it to be more and more violent. I've long felt that the better the pads, the better the helmet, the more violent the
well, I think that's right.
The sport became, and that if we really wanted to solve this, we'd take away all of the protective gear, so they couldn't hit each other so hard.
Well, that's what our brother says. If you want to make the game safer, get rid of the helmets. And he's right.
Well, I have felt that way for a long. I felt that way ever since I found out that Eddie Glick was a Packer, and I realized that he must have played a totally different sport. Eddie Glick was an old man when I was a little girl.
He was so tiny.
He was all of maybe 5'3", 5'4".
He couldn't have been. I mean, he was so tiny.
He was little, and he weighed 80 pounds, dripping wet.
I mean, we were kids when we knew him, and he was tiny.
And he was married to big, tall Virginia Glick, who was much taller than he.
Virginia Glick, yeah.
And she was gorgeous. It just cracked me up. And clearly younger than he. Don't you think? Or was he just beautiful? I don't know. Anyway.
Here, Susan. Milton, who's our go-to guy every time he's come up with this. The Bluebell was a 60-foot twin-masted sailing ketch.
Yeah.
Based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Yeah.
The ship was scuttled following an act of mass murder by the ship's captain on November 12, 1961.
Yeah. I was 10.
He died by suicide within hours of receiving news that 11-year-old Terry Jo Duperall had
Duperall, that was her name, right? Right.
Terry Jo.
Terry Jo.
He had been rescued at sea. So he thought there were no
he thought he got away with it because he killed everybody. Yeah.
And then when he found out she was alive, he killed himself. She was rescued at sea 3.5 days after the incident, having drifted on a small cork dinghy without food, water, or shelter for 82 hours. God.
And having watched her parents being massacred.
Oh my God.
No, this was the stuff that nightmares were made
I have no memory of that.
I'm just here to tell you that there's real good reason why I was an anxious little kid.
Well, so it was her father and mother, and
I don't think they weren't from Green Bay, but I think her grandparents lived in the Duperolles were. Okay.
We're Green Bay. And he says they had a 14-year-old son, Brian, who was killed, a 7-year-old Renee.
Yeah, the whole family.
Good God, he was a contact lens optometrist. I had gotten my contacts from him. They resided in Green Bay and had long dream of doing this cruise. He'd been in the Navy during World War II.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you, Milton. Otherwise I might have been accused of making this up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that just scared me to because this was not only my community, this was the girl at the next desk.
Chris writes, last night, Lawrence O'Donnell, that would be MSNBC, showed the tackle and had him collapsing. And they showed it about 5 times or so. I saw something on, again, social media. I think it was in response to the article that I quoted from. And there were a number of people that were just ripping into MSNBC. It's why I asked if you had seen it. They ripped into MSNBC. They ripped into Rachel Maddow. Apparently she was showing it over and over. I know that somebody said. Anyway, so yeah, I find that disgusting. Shame on them.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, they're just well.
Yeah, so his charity, GoFundMe charity, is called the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive, is now over $3 million. His goal was $2,500.
Right.
He says he had written that the campaign will give you the opportunity to contribute and positively impact children who have been hardest hit by the pandemic. It was the pandemic. 100% of the funds raised will go toward the purchase of toys. Oh, God. So, okay. Unbelievable. Okay, take a breath.
All right, take a breath, dear sister.
Okay.
So how are things otherwise?
Not good, Suze. I have these other two things I want to talk to you about. I kept them for you. This came out of the Jewish Chronicle, so most of you have not seen this. Maybe you've seen these billboards. I have not. Susan, I'm looking at a picture of a billboard that it says is on Banksville Road, which is, people will know where that is. And it's like a big yellow billboard. And in big, big black letters, it says, "You're not like other Jews." Yeah. And
that's what people say. That's what people say to you when they find out you're Jewish and they're anti-Semites.
That's what they say when they have. Yeah. Well,
I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Well, I don't know that I've heard that. I've heard it a lot with black people.
Well, I heard it from Lori Cole's mother.
Saying, but he's not like other. Okay. Well, yeah. This is what happens to a minority. When people meet you, like you, and then they find out. I guess with the Jews, they don't know for a while.
They don't. Oh, you're Jewish? You're not like other Jews.
Oh, my God, you're not. Well, the most astonishing one I ever got was that one of, "Oh, you're Jewish? Can I feel your horns?"
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got
and that was by the sweetest young girl. I mean, I didn't take offense. As a matter of fact, I'd never heard we had horns. That was my introduction to we had horns. It was at St. Norbert College when we were in a rehearsal for
My Fair Lady.
No, Music Man, because she played for Music Man. Anyway, so there's a billboard, and there's a lot of them apparently around town. I have not seen them. "You're not like other Jews." But then in tiny, I'm telling you, it's way too small. In green, which doesn't jump out from the yellow, under "You're not like other Jews," tiny, it says, I can barely read it from the picture, "There's nothing casual about anti-Semitism."
No, that needs to be bigger.
God! So it turns out this is part of an effort by a whole ton of organizations and that have come together to fund it. And just so you know, it's all these Jewish organizations, like all the federations and Chabad, but also the Muslim Jewish Coalition, the Wiesenthal Center, the Anti-Defamation League, Hillel, the National Black Empowerment Council. All of these groups have come together to fund what is being called the Shine a Light project. And the billboards are part of it. And I'm telling you, this is not helpful. Because all people, you're going down Banksville Road. I'm sorry, I don't know what the speed limit is there, but you're going down Banksville Road at 50 miles per hour, probably 35. And you see you're not like other Jews, but you don't see the small print. If you get stuck in traffic somewhere, maybe you can read the whole thing. What idiots thought this was a good idea? I am so sickened by it, I can't see straight. And listen, you think that's a bad one? Listen to what some of the other billboards say. Same kind of thing. This huge thing in black with this tiny little thing saying anti-Semitism is not acceptable. Here's another one. I would never have guessed you're Jewish. You're so cool. And this is the biggie.
I'm waiting for my favorite. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here's the one. That's okay. Here's the one. Did you see the diamond on her finger? It's huge. But what do you expect? He has a Jewish fiance.
That doesn't even make that.
Okay, and here's one more. There's one final one here. If you don't think the Holocaust happened, maybe Jews aren't your issue. Maybe history class is. You know, I don't find this. I think this is, and apparently they've done a lot of. There's things on TV. These groups have put on. So they're doing PSAs that are airing, you know, whenever. And with voiceovers like hate doesn't exist in a vacuum. One form of hate leads to another. And there is one form of hate on the rise in the U.S., often passed off as legitimate discourse or just ignored anti-Semitism. I don't know. All I can say is here's some other billboards. Does your church need security cameras? Because our synagogue does. Here's another one.
I'd like to point out there's been plenty of churches burned.
Yeah, but but it is synagogues where you walk through, where doors are locked, where you can't.
Well, that's true. No, that's true.
Really, it's where there's always cops. Yep. I mean, even when I took Mom to Yom Kippur services in Green Bay, a police officer has to let you in to the side door.
Well, and that's been going on in Green Bay since I was a kid.
I know, but I don't remember. Not when we.
There was always a cop. There was always a cop watching during the high holidays.
Cops, but not like this. It was. I'm telling you, the side door where you go in. You know.
Yeah, no, they weren't. They weren't manning the door. No.
And what was fascinating is that when the rabbi was giving his sermon, he specifically mentioned Officer so-and-so, who's been such a friend to us for so many years. I mean, so everybody, I guess, because I don't go to services. He's like, loved by the congregation. It's something he asked to do. And so when Mom and I left, I told him, I said, you got a big shout out in there.
What did he say?
He just smiled. Okay, and here's just one more. I just think this is a bad idea.
It's a bad idea if the message isn't clear, I'll tell you that much.
Here's an idea. Let's ask everyone who's wondering if anti-Semitism is real to wear a yarmulke for a week and report back. Okay, now all of those things, fine. I don't mind that because that doesn't require. See, those are direct.
Right.
The last two I read, those are direct. But these things that are like, yeah, Jew, you're not a Jew. Oh, I didn't know you were a Jew. You're like the rest of them. And then having this,
they have the emphasis on the wrong syllable, and that's the question should have been in the smaller print, and the answer should have been screaming at you.
I don't know.
My favorite was when I was, I think I was at Northwestern Cherub Program, and I was talking to some young man, and it came up that I was Jewish, and he said, "Oh, you don't look Jewish. I would have said French."
That's funny.
It is funny.
That's funny. Okay, now you mentioned the Northwestern Cherub Program. I have one. From the Cherub Program. The Cherub Program, guys, was at Northwestern University for high school students between their junior and senior years.
Yeah.
And you go and you'd major in something. I did film. What'd you do, Suze? Education. Okay.
Yeah.
And, it was pretty neat. You stayed in dorms and all that kind of stuff.
It was a college experience. Yes.
Yeah. So there was a guy, believe it or not, I'd been kissed once, rather chastely at this point. There was a guy, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. God, was he good looking. This gorgeous blonde guy from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I still have a scar on my knee from
swooning.
From trying to clamber over like a wrought iron fence with him when we were, I think, making out or something, and a cop was shining, and we ran, and I ripped my knee open. Anyway,
yes, sounds so like you.
I recommend it too. I know.
There was never a romantic episode in which you did not end up bleeding in some way or another.
I know, or humiliated. So listen to this. This must have been before that experience, because this would have been our first like big kiss.
Right.
I'll remember his name if it's the last thing. Dave. Okay.
Well, it wasn't our first kiss; it was yours.
Yes. Okay. So he's kissing me. This gorgeous guy, I'm ready to die. And it's the first time, I'm sorry if this is offensive to anybody, I'm sorry. It's the first time I had someone's tongue in my mouth. And I thought, good God, is what I thought. And as he's kissing me with that tongue in my mouth, I'm moving my tongue all around so that it doesn't touch his tongue. I figured that the thing to do is you dodge that thing.
Okay, I just want to interrupt for a second to say this is why I call her the best big sister ever, because she was 3.5 years older than I, and she would come home and tell me these stories this way in real time as cautionary tales, and I just so appreciated and loved her for it.
You didn't do that when you found a tongue in your mouth. You realized,
I at least knew what was going on. I'm telling you, you were so useful to me.
I was so clueless. So anyway, we're kissing. I'm dodging my tongue's doing little flips, and he pulls away. And here's what. Now you'll see. I'll take this back to where we started. And here's what his response was: "Don't you Jewish girls have tongues?" Dear God. So that was where.
No, you contributed a great deal to my sophistication, because the two of us would be rolling around laughing hysterically as you imparted very important lessons to me.
Oh, God. Oh, God. What a babe in the woods. Okay, so I have this thing I want to bring up with you, and I kept this for you, Suze, because it caused me to have politically incorrect reactions. So this is for you. Did you see that Steven Tyler, Aerosmith?
Yeah, and he's being sexually accused of sexual assault just before the end of the statute of limitations.
Yeah,
right.
So he was charged in a lawsuit by a woman who says, and I think it's quite clear, she obviously was in a relationship in the early 70s when she was underage.
Yep.
Now, yeah, and actually, and she slid this in right as,
right under the expanded statute of limitations. Right under
the wire. Okay, so she'd be now like my age practically. We're old farts, right?
Right.
So he has written, I'm not a big fan of his, by the way, just so you know, Steven Tyler. He which is absurd since I don't know him. I am
okay. I'm just going to accept that as a statement of fact, and I'm not going to analyze it in any way. Okay.
So
it must be the nail polish. What?
He's had a book out, his memoir, which is titled "Does the Noise in My Head Bother You?" That's the name of it. Anyway.
Yeah.
In his memoir, he writes about the early days of the band and of a time that he was so in love that, quote, I almost took a teen bride. And then goes on to describing all kinds of sexual encounters with her in airplanes, in elevators. They couldn't take their hands off each other. And it's clearly her. Because in her suit, she, has the same things. Yeah, I was 16 and we're thising and thatting, and he was over. He was 26. Was an adult, supposedly.
He was 26.
Okay. So she's now 65. So, it turns out that he was so in love with her, he wanted her with him all the time. And so her lawsuit says that he persuaded her mother to let him become her legal guardian.
Why is he suing? Why is he suing? Why is she suing Tyler? Why isn't she suing her mother?
That's what I want to say to you.
Well, I just said it to you.
Her parents,
agreed to
are
this.
the ones to blame. Yeah,
and so the other thing that I was going to say is, if I take myself back to the 70s and what parents wanted for their daughters, they wanted them to partner with a successful man, which he was. I can remember our parents at around the same time sending you off with a 54-year-old actor. You should sue them too.
But they thought that was not for a sexual relationship. He was right.
No. Right, no. They didn't. They couldn't imagine. Right.
Clueless. The reason I was so clueless about sexual things is because they were clueless.
They were totally clueless.
Totally clueless.
We come of the most innocent of parents. Okay. Mother married the first man she kissed.
That's right.
She never told us whether it was the last man she kissed, however.
But here in his book, he writes, her parents fell in love. Her parents. I don't know why she just says the mother's side. He says her parents fell in love with me, signed papers over for me to have custody so I wouldn't get arrested if I took her out of state. And I took her on tour. And she, yes, eventually became pregnant. He paid her, she says, coerced her into having an abortion. She later left him. She married. She's the mother of 7 children. And I want to know why the hell she's suing him now.
Well, she can't. She's going to lose.
You think she's going to lose?
I do. Well,
she's going to get money off him. This is a shakedown.
It's just a shakedown, and you are not going to convince me, because 16-year-old girls had relationships with older men all the time. It was de rigueur. I mean, it wasn't even. It doesn't even make my eyes cross.
Yeah, but a lot of those, let's say a 16-year-old with a 19-year-old, and that 19-year-old could be doing prison time.
Yeah,
and a lot of
statutory rape.
Or did.
Absolutely statutory rape. But you're going to have the problem is that a 16-year-old cannot consent. by law.
Right.
I don't know. I have a problem with this all over the place. I just do.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you in her own mind, she's thinking about her having 3 years of the best time of her life with him.
Right. That's correct.
I'm sorry. I can actually remember being that age, and I have a hard time believing that she wasn't willingly and happily going where she wanted to go, which is one of the reasons why her parents, who also liked him, allowed it.
But signing over,
that part is creepy, and that's where she goes over to her parents.
Oh, and in her lawsuit, she says he promised that he would make sure she was educated at very good schools and blah, blah, blah. And, he never sent her to any schools. And she says, so he didn't make good on his, God!
Well, so she's suing because of the business deal. This is what I'm talking about. Either this is a criminal case, in which case none of the business deal has anything to do with it. And what she's arguing about this being a business deal, it sort of, for me, makes the whole issue of guilt or in a criminal case speaks to innocence, because he had no intent.
Yeah.
His intent was to be with her legally.
Right. As he said, he wanted to marry her.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know why you thought I would disagree with you about this. I don't.
All right. Well, good. Anybody else disagree with us? Huh? I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, when I was 16, at that time, in that period, if someone had said to me that I didn't have the right to sort of make these decisions myself, I would have been, offended. We were pretty independent in those days.
Yeah, but I didn't know that tongues could end up in your mouth.
No, we were innocent. I mean, I didn't know there were homosexuals.
Well, that's true too.
We didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know what wasn't right in front of us, because how would we?
God. All right, so today for the political junkies, I just have to say this.
Yeah, all sorts of things are happening.
Okay, so the 118th Congress is gavelled into session in an hour or so at noon. So it's Nancy Pelosi who's holding the gavel for the last time, right? She's still the speaker, right?
Well, no, there's a period where the clerk of the House takes over. She steps down, and then the clerk steps in and runs things until the next speaker is chosen. One ends before the next begins, and there can be a period where there is none.
Yes, but
with the swearing in of the new Congress, she is no longer. Until they swear in, she's the speaker. Once they haven't sworn in.
Swearing in, I think, happens after the election of the speaker. I am so confused about this. Because
and meanwhile, McCarthy's moving into his office, and he might not.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the votes,
but he's moving into his office because he lost his own offices, and there's someone else in there, so he has no place to go.
Well, this chaos. The assumption that there's going to be chaos today because it's Republicans in control is a fitting beginning to the chaos.
Let's just watch them.
In the next 2 years.
When Marjorie Taylor Greene starts sounding like the reasonable voice of the House, saying we have to unite. You can't show that the way you win is to disintegrate. And probably I'm going, yeah, that's right, Marge.
Well, you know why? This shows how. Yeah.
Because she's decided where her power is.
Yeah. She wants him in because he's going to owe her big time. And that's the same with the loathsome Jim Jordan. God almighty. These horrible, horrible people. And Santos, I mean, the reason McCarthy hasn't said boo about Santos is what if Santos is the one vote for him? And yeah, right. I mean, they'll put them over the top. I just don't understand. How can that
guy, I mean, we really, there are some things we have to fit. Yeah.
Chutzpah.
Well, when he just stands there, the guy is clearly a psychopath. When he just stands there and says, well, but I just embellished. And I'm thinking, making up your whole life is not embellishing.
Did you see that the Brazilian government is reopening a case against him?
Yeah.
The Brazilians could put him in jail. Meanwhile, their former president, Trumpish president, Bolsonaro, has gone where all, would-be autocrats go. He's taken off for Florida. Just want to be clear. Bolsonaro refused to, like Trump, to take part in the peaceful transfer of power, flew off to Orlando. I could only think of, how
I'm going to Disney World.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always thinking. I'm going to Disney World. And you can bet. I mean, he and Trump were buddies, so you could bet the two of them. God, Florida. God, what a swamp.
I know. I used to really enjoy my time there, and I wouldn't even knowing that I had to be careful. I only ever talked to people in Whole Foods who also only talked to me. I've had funny conversation in Whole Foods, but it was very Republican where I was then, but no one dealt with that, and all these years later, I can't. It's just like buying a Tesla. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't step foot.
Whole Foods, I can't do Whole Foods.
Well, I live in a city where
Bezos, and I know. I can't. Somebody, I don't know.
Well, listen, where can you go eat? Kroger is trying to become the only grocery store in the United States, as far as I can tell, because it's already eaten up half of the different places in Chicago, and it is trying to buy up the other half. So,
well, I think every city is like this now. There's no place to get. I mean, we've got a monopoly here pretty much with Giant Eagle, which is locally owned, but these monopolistic. I
can distinctly remembering that there were laws that to foster competition.
What happened to those laws? I mean, and we were talking, I think yesterday I was talking about the fact that in 1980, there were 12 major airlines in this country. There are now 4.
And chaos ensues.
Yes. What happened to the idea? See, this is where the capitalists and the free marketers are full of shit, because the game Monopoly tells you what the end game really is. It's to own it all. It's to eat up everybody else. And so you don't end up in this marketplace with competition unless there are government stepping in, unless government regulates, because capitalism will end up like we're ending up with just a very few corporations in charge, with whole industries in the grips of essentially monopolies. And that means higher prices.
And in the city and food deserts. I mean, let's just use grocery stores.
That's right.
Right now there's pretty much grocery stores. Okay. I'm sorry. This is already an elitist view, because there are real food deserts in Chicago, depending on where you are, and what part of the city you live in. But in other parts of the city, there's a grocery store on every corner.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand how the regular public isn't noticing that our choices are becoming fewer and fewer. Everything is homogenized about our lives. I mean, there used to be downtowns, there used to be small business. Every mall wasn't exactly like every other mall. This is because now the malls are going down.
The malls are going down, but because they ended up all being owned by one or two companies, and hard times took them all down. The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
People like to sit on their asses and order everything online. That's a big part of it.
Well, I guess I find I was never one for the holiday, for enforced giving at certain times. It makes me grumpy, but I at least didn't mind it if I could go in and actually shop and get into shopping for people. But now just going online and who knows?
I understand. But part of it is our desire to save time and to avoid having to.
And to live through the experience, not to get sick, not to get shot. All reasonable things that could happen to you while you're shopping in the mall.
Oh God, what a country! What have we become? Okay, well. Did you see this case? And I wish I'd cut it out, as I don't have it in front of me. Some guy. I think this was a grocery store, or a Walmart or something. Some guy goes into a grocery store. I think this was in Georgia.
Oh, armed with like 6 different guns hanging off of him?
He had 500,000. He had they actually was a picture of all the guys. He had 6 what looked like guns to me, and then 3 or 4 of the long
straps of ammo around his shoulders.
Yeah, and he also had on, a vest. He was armed to the teeth and had himself protected, and
people started screaming and running out of the store.
The whole place went berserk, and people went screaming out. He got arrested, but I don't think ever got convicted.
No, because he wasn't breaking any law.
He wasn't breaking any law.
The law doesn't say how many. If you are allowed to carry in a state where they put no restrictions on it, they don't say you can't carry 18 guns. They just say you can carry.
That's right, and you can openly carry. And so, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? The absurdity of where we have ended up in regard to guns in this country is another. We should hang our heads.
Here's the thing. Someone should have just shot him. And shoot him in the back. Shoot him in the back. His very being there was a threat.
Yeah.
And by definition, a good threat. And if you got a clear shot at him, take him out.
That's right. But he was all armored up. I don't know.
Well, shoot him in the back.
But shoot him in the leg. On his back.
Well, shoot him in the leg. They can get him in the...
turn around and shoot you.
He'll bleed to death.
But I get your point. Again, if somebody feels threatened, you can kill people. And it's becoming increasingly obvious that almost every American should feel threatened all the time because of our fellow Americans.
That's right.
God.
Mostly white men.
Mostly white men. Who are scared of black men.
Yeah. And therefore will shoot anyone they want. Also all women.
God help us. All right. Well, that's it, Suze. We've hit the hour mark.
Did we grump our way through a whole hour?
I don't think we grumped. We laughed a little bit today.
Yeah, we did.
Didn't we?
Did. Yes, we did. Whenever we wander into your adolescent sexual exploits.
Oh, God.
Okay. Happy New Year, everybody. May it be healthier and happier, and, it won't be hard than in 22. Let's go for broke. Let's go for at least a third of days basked in happiness. That would be good.
All righty.
Okay.
From your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I love you.
I love you too.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
And bye, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.